Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Anthony, your host. And what we've got here is I've had a couple of requests for a condensed version of Kong Skull Island as far as the build out. What I did when I first got obsessed with aquascaping, I had just moved into my condominium. It's built in the early 80s, and I was looking at my firebox just like this. And I'm allergic to smoke, so I'm never going to use a fireplace. And I immediately thought this would make a great terrarium. And so I set about cleaning it first. So that's your first initial step. And what we do to this firebox, nothing is permanent. So if you're renting or leasing, you can do this completely without doing any renovation to the firebox itself. So that's one of the big important things. But I've cleaned it 3 separate times and got it down to a really clean layer. And here I'm showing the vinyl that I've already started putting in. Now this vinyl, I just used double stick tape. That tells you how easy this would be to take apart. I used a perimeter of tape all around the sides and in the middle. Did the sides first. Then I did the top of the enclosure, which means you're taping off the venting system. And then I also put the vinyl on the bottom and then seamed it all with silicone so that it would become waterproof. Now I'm showing the one light that I did put in there. This is a full spectrum. I had this left over from another project, and it's just going to be hanging from the top. You won't see it, which is one of the great features about what I like about this project. So also the vinyl I already had, so I didn't have to purchase anything for the vinyl as well. So right now it's just getting the vinyl in there and then getting it waterproofed and then moving forward with the watering system. Okay, so now I have got the whole enclosure, the vinyl's put everywhere. I've applied the waterproof caulking all along the sides because fireboxes are not waterproof. So the last thing you want to do is to put something in, even if you're just renting, to put something in because moisture is going to be inside the firebox. And if you put too much water in there, it's just going to leak out at the seams along the sides of where the bricks are inside the enclosure itself. Now, one note I wanted to kind of point out is my firebox did not have the knockout for the gas pipe. However, if you wanted to use the knockout, you could literally maybe put more water in your firebox and have a drain. That would be something that would be really helpful because I did put a rainfall effect inside mine, but I can barely use it because I do not want it to fill up and get too liquidy on the inside for the plants and the animals that are going to be in there. But if it had had the knockout, I think that would have been an improvement. Okay, so here I'm just showing that's a 1/4 inch 360-degree dripping tube. That's what I use for the irrigation, attached to a little pump. The pump I think was like $12 on Amazon, and that just goes into a bucket of water that's in the storage unit right next to the firebox. So I tried to hide everything so you couldn't see it. Okay, now the exciting part. So in my scavenging for items out in nature, I came across this bark and I fell in love with it immediately because it's so chunky. And I knew that I wanted to use this in Kong as the foundation, which would have been what the villagers would have built as the foundation for his enclosure. I thought it was amazing. I thought the color was beautiful. And I love the fact that it had gaps in it that could allow for me to put some hopefully moss or plants in some of those gaps. So what I did it came in larger pieces and I had to cut it down. And then I eventually used black great stuff to attach that to the back wall of the enclosure. So now I'm laying out the light, the watering system. The watering system really tested my patience because the pump was too small, the tubing didn't fit the pump, and so it took forever for any water to actually come out. So I really was, in retrospect, I did not even need the watering system. Now that I use it on a larger pump, and it rains like crazy. And I can't have that because it would just get too wet inside there. But when it's raining, it looks amazing. So if I'd had a drain or access to putting a drain in mine, I would definitely be using that water system every single day. But what I did with the tubing is I attached it to the top of the ceiling with the 360-degree dripping. And so when you turn it on, the theory is that it's just going to drip randomly because I ran the tubing all across the ceiling, so you can't see any of it. And then I put the light fixture up there with it as well, so it was hidden as well. Okay, so here we have a shot of how I've got some of the tubing put together to attach to the ceiling. And here you are seeing pretty much the final project as far as the watering system is. It's taped up there. The tape has held. I used electrical tape and it stays up there fine. So I didn't have any problem with that. And it is waterproof. And now I've secured the light on the back side. I couldn't put it on the front side where I wanted it because the light's not wide enough. Of course, fireboxes are narrow at the back. This way it could just sit right up there and the firebox itself is holding the light up. So if I ever need to move the light, I'm fine because it just pulls up and down like that. It's super, super easy. What we're about to go into though is the actual water system in action. Here we go. Yes, I put a little Easter egg in there for my friends that know that I love my music from the 80s and 90s. So here's the drip irrigation system. And in the first round of this, I was going to put the pump inside the enclosure itself. And then I switched it to putting it outside the enclosure because I realized, I didn't need to have the water inside there, taking up so much space. So this is the original version of the drip, and I just was not happy with it. So I ended up taking like a thumbtack and poking holes in the tubing itself to get more flow. So there are scenes much later on in other videos where the water is really coming out, and it just looks. To me, it just looks amazing. But that's the watering in theory. And when I started putting the structure in there, I made sure that I had watering coming down all three of the wall sides because keeping the wood moist was very important because I've got plants and dirt behind the wood itself. And I'll show you that when we get to that section. Okay, so here's the fun part. This is where now I'm finally taking the bark and I'm kind of just lining them up just to see what's going to work where. You'll notice I do have these moss mountains that I'm working with. I found those out in nature and they had been growing in tubs for about 2 months at the point that I have them here in this video. So even though when I first started in with the hobby, which was back in September, I was doing things behind the scenes before I ever built anything, just because I knew I was going to need moss and I was going to need structures to go inside there. And we're doing this from an extreme budget. So we're not wanting to buy anything that we don't have to buy. So the wood, getting it free, locally sourced, the moss, getting it free, locally sourced, everything I could, and including when we get to the plant section, I buy one plant and then I divide it up and turn it into multiples. So even when we talk about how much we're paying for the plants, for me, there was not one plant that cost even over maybe 75 cents because I would buy one plant for $3, wash it, tear it apart, put it into growth chambers, and it could turn into 3 to 5 plants. So that's another great way to keep your costs down. So here it's just me trying to figure out what is going to work where. I initially was going to use my silicone to attach these to the vinyl, but they did not stick to the vinyl. And I don't find this out until the next day when I've been trying to do it. So this is all about just placement of the structures that are in there. Okay, so now I've gone in and I have placed the great stuff behind selected pieces in the structure. Some of the pieces, like a couple of the moss mountains, I didn't have to worry about because they were wedged in between other places. But on the camera, well, now I'm going to be zooming in. So the nice thing I know about was pointing out here is there are gaps in where the great stuff is. And I figured that I could use these to do some plantings. And yes, that's going to be possible. I haven't utilized all of them yet, but it's fine. Another thing I wanted to point out here is that this is not a flat structure. These pieces protrude out from the wall. There's soil behind the wooden structures as well. And here we're going to take a shot, and this is some of the wood pieces that I'm going to end up placing on top of the wood that's already there to give it the illusion that there's greenery all above that. And I even have some decayed wood that I've collected since 3 or 4 months ago that I can place in there to fill in the gaps because I didn't have enough of the chunky wood to put in there. So I do have a nice selection of the other moss wood that I can put in there just to kind of give it that overall natural looking theme. And so here you are, here's a rain shot. And you can see that I've placed the wood at the top, all on the sides, and I've added more moss coming down wherever it would fit on those decaying woods between the other pieces of wood. And I'm loving that. But there's a section I'm about to start tweaking that I'm actually creating an island on the right hand side of the picture. That was just a screenshot of the lighting that was going in there because I think in this video I took a screenshot of everything that I had used so far to show how budget friendly we were being about everything. This is one of my trips when I was in Louisville, and I found some plants that I wanted to put in the terrarium that had been growing in there. And ultimately, because I was dealing with the gnat problem, I ended up killing everything that I put in there at first, which was moss, which was sad because I'd been growing all this stuff. Okay, so here I'm placing the reed grass, which is not going to survive. I'll just tell you that right now. It's not going to survive. And we should be getting into planting of the rest of the moss structure. Okay, here's a better shot of the rain. This is what it's more like now. The raining is everywhere, which to me was mesmerizing. Okay, so I've already putting in my gravel layer, which is for the moisture, to keep the moisture away from the soil. Next, we should see the shot. Oh, okay, that was a quick shot of the glass door that I made. It's just a piece of glass. And here I'm putting down the screen and then the soil compost. And I've made other videos about this as far as my preferred mixture, but I'm just trying to fill in all around the wood structures at the top and just give it the slope that I'm looking for. And that's what I've settled on up to this point. Now, from this one to the next video, I think is where I had the gnat infestation, and I unfortunately sprayed a chemical in the room and into the enclosure to kill them because they were everywhere, and it killed all of the moss that was in there. So you're about to see that section next, I believe. Okay, there's not much to say about this. This is after I've killed the moss. You can see it looks yellow on camera. It's actually devoid of any color. It's actually like a blonde. But in the clips we're going to add to this, I'm going to show you how I went in there, re-cleaned it moved some things around, and have recovered since then. Okay, so here I'm showing after I had a long confessional about the damage I really did to Skull Island. I took out the pieces that were not attached from the previous shots that you just looked at, and I put them in a very, very strong bath for about 3 hours for each one of them and rinsed everything off. In the meantime, I had gone on a scavenger hunt trying to see if I could find a couple of pieces to place in there with the others to kind of fill in because I did not have the lush greenery that I was looking for from the very beginning. And so I really was fortunate because I found three pieces. And what it gave me the ability, here's one of them right here, to where I made some vertical progress inside with being able to put some really good height in there. You can see just how easy it was for me to break that off because they're really very, very fragile, and I'm just shoving them in there. It's giving me additional places to put soil behind these new pieces as well. And as you can see, they were nice and green compared to what the ones I'd had in the enclosure before. And I had an entire video just about the damage I did and by putting an insecticide inside the terrarium and what it did. But as a result, I took all the soil that I had placed in there and removed all of it and put back in a completely new set because I did not know how long, when I Googled the product I used in there, it can stay for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so I didn't want it killing off the plants that we're going to put in there, which is in this video as well. So the nice thing is I'm just trying to get placement here, but I come up with what I love. It's a really, really cool idea. It really enhances, I think, the look over what I had before, because I did reuse every one of my pieces that I damaged, but I also reused the new ones that I brought along as well and came up with something that I thought was really kind of fun and representative of the cinematic scene that I'm going for. Because remember, this is Kong. He's got this fortress, and this fortress has mountains on both sides of it. Now, the whole point is this eventually is the beach scene where in the remake of the movie with Jack Black, they come onto the beach and there's cannibals and all this kind of stuff. So what you're looking at is really my interpretation of that in a terrarium. That was my whole inspiration, was the movie. I'm a huge movie fan and I love King Kong because that's been such an iconic movie since the beginning. And what I love about this is these new pieces really gave me this mountain scene to the right that I'm putting in there right now. So it's a challenge as far as planting because there's not so much planting space because those are solid wood pieces that I've put some soil around them, but I don't want to kill the moss, and not have the moss in there like what I want. And then I was able to, you can't see it right now because the bucket's in front of it, in front of the shot, but one of the mountains I turned on its side, and I wanted to kind of give it the illusion that the island is so old that through time, what might have even been bigger mountains have eroded down through the ages. And I think I achieved that through the one that's leaning, and then one on the extreme right. It's the closest piece of wood to the structure itself, and it looks like it's split off from the original structure. So it's adding to that overall theme that this is a really old island, and these are mountains, and this is where the villagers have lived throughout their lives, and Kong is still kept at bay through the wall that's behind them. So the wall's not been breached. Although I allude to that fact that there's a way for the islanders to get back inside there, that there's an opening, because I make a path when we put the sand, we invite the sand onto the island to make it look like, yes, this is the island and you just don't see the water in front of you. I allude to the fact that there's a path that goes between the wall for the villagers to get in and out of. So for me, this has been such an amazing build because I was able to just let my love of movies and creativity flow with this. And we're not even to the planning stage yet, which is the fun part. So right now, I'm using so much more dirt than I had in there the first time. You can tell I'm packing it where all the crevices are because I want to be able to plant things and have things growing because I want to be able to have that jungle look. Um, right now we're in the initial stages of that. I want to add more plants to it, but I want to find things that are kind of interesting. Okay, so you can tell on the left with the island that's jutted out angling. Love that aspect because it does look like it's been split off. And then on the right side you've got that massive um, wood structure. There's three big wood structures all together that will have moss growing on all of them. And so now we got a quick shot to the plants that's going to be going into. Now, so I talked about it earlier, but let's talk about it again. Okay, so I'm very opportunistic on my plants. I'm going to get them the cheapest place I can. So basically, my preference is Home Depot, and I'm going to say why. I shop at Lowe's, I shop at Walmart. Walmart is going to be a little bit cheaper, and they're going to be the exact same plants that you can get at Lowe's and that you can get at Home Depot. It's the same grower. But at Walmart, their prices are just about $1 cheaper. Home Depot is $1 more, but I think their plants are better quality because they actually have theirs in an area where the plants are taken care of. If you're going to go to Walmart, you make sure you get there early enough because I bought 4 or 5 plants from there right when the display was set up. And when I'm saying the display was set up, I'm talking about the little cardboard thing they have to where they put terrarium plants out. And then once those are gone, it's sold, they don't have any more. Okay, but you go to Home Depot and they take care of theirs in the process. I'm not saying they don't care at Walmart, but they have more things to do because that's such a big mega store. And no one really is back there watering the plants because I went there when the delivery showed up. I was the second person to see the install put in. It's just cardboard boxes and it's 3 shelves and that's all you had. I went back 4 days later. Most of the plants were dead because no one had watered them in the intermediate. So Home Depot, I love it because they take care of their plants, but they don't have any different selection than what Walmart or Lowe's are going to have. Lowe's is just way more expensive. If you like shopping at Lowe's, fine, go to Lowe's to pay more money. But this channel is all about budget and how we can get one plant and turn it into many plants so that you can keep your terrarium building going on and you're not having to rebuy plants. So what I've done, and you can see it in the clips, when I show you a little tiny pot that is a Dixie cup, that meant that I took that mother plant and divided it into anywhere. The most I've gotten out of one is 5. I've gotten 5 plants off of one. And then they all continue to grow in my growth chambers. And I did look and categorized all my plants that I had selected for the first set that's going through to see who was going to get the tallest or the widest. So I did do some research about that and to kind of place them where I knew I could leave that plant there. Now, I did immediately a few days after have to go in and do some editing. So I did do some major cutbacks because I want to encourage the new leaves that are coming out to be smaller. I've done some online research about it, and they say terrarium plants naturally, when you put them in an enclosure, should grow smaller leaves. And so that's what I was looking for it to happen. And I am just sticking with what I've seen either on other videos. I put 2 pieces of ivy in there specifically to see if they will grow, where I just cut them and put them. And if you want the video where I talk about setting up the substrate for the terrarium. I've got it in another Kong video, and then I also have it in a separate video where when I do my scavenger hunts, I create growth chambers where I use the same recipe, which is basically 2 parts of sphagnum moss. And when I say part, that's any size container you want to use. So if you want to use a cup and you want to put it together, you're going to do 2 cups of sphagnum and then 1 cup of everything else. And the additional is going to be a sand. You're going to do potting soil, and that's your preference. I go with organic. I did just have to replace the potting soil I had been using, which is in this build. I like it a lot better. I used a Walmart organic the first time and I really liked it. I went to Home Depot because Walmart didn't have any, and Home Depot had another variety. I'm not near as happy with it. It doesn't seem as healthy as the soil that I got out of the organic one from Walmart, which felt a lot more nutrient rich. And then, so your sphagnum moss, your sand, your potting soil, your biochar, which is something you put in there, mix a layer in there before you put your soil down, but on top of the gravel and the screening, so that it just keeps everything healthy. And then I do a reptile bark, which is a small bark, and that's 1 part. And then also worm castings, 1 part. Because I plan on putting isopods in my enclosures as the pet or the inhabitants that are going to be inside there. And I want everyone to be happy as far as having places to sneak off to and to be able to feed off of. So, what I did this time around is I built up the back of the enclosure a lot more, and I put a lot more soil behind the walls so that if I want to have something growing from the very, very top and kind of hanging down like a cascade, I can do something like that as well. I've also been playing around with, there's a video I saw where this lady goes around to greenhouses and nurseries, and she just picks up leaves that are on the ground that have fallen off of a plant. I'm trying that. I'm not having much success with that, but I am trying that as well to see if I can get anywhere with that. And also in my scavenger hunts, I've been trying to find native ferns that I can grow. And I was really, really lucky. I found 3 on my last trip out. And this is in December when it's cold. But if you have enough water or have had some rain or snow or whatever, that always hydrates your moss back up again, and it does for your ferns as well. So you can be out on your nature walks just like I'm doing. I'm doing my nature walks every single month from in September when it was 110 degrees outside until now when it's like 30 and 40 degrees. Now, I don't like to go out when it's 30, but if it's in the 40s and no wind, I can handle that. And my nature walks are probably the biggest benefit of the hobby is I've been having a blast on my nature walks, because your nature walks force you to slow down and to take small steps and see the little things. Now, if you'll notice what I'm doing a couple of times right here with that, especially that green waxy leafed 2-leaf plant that's on the bottom right, I've just cut that off and I'm just sticking it into the ground. And I'm doing a lot of testing right now to see what's going to happen. And okay, so now it's a lot. Okay, so I did turn the water on briefly just so you guys could see what the water looks like. And you see my hummingbird, the yellow hummingbird on the right-hand side? No, that's not a live hummingbird. That's part of the solution for the gnat problem. The home remedy, that they say tout about the vinegar cider, that doesn't even work. Okay, so here is where we're finally adding the sand effect. And we'll see, I just did in the same video a major cutback on a lot of the plants just to kind of keep them more to scale. And I put a lot of new moss back at the tops of all the mountains because the other when it had died, I had taken everything out. But I went on another scavenger hunt since then and found some more moss to put back in place of what I had lost. Actually, I had used moss, I think that came from Louisville, on that particular scavenger hunt. So, and here is the last version of the rain itself, and it's coming down really heavily here. So now we are about to bring in the second set of isopods. Funny story, I was cleaning out one of the bins from some of the aquarium plants that I was growing, and I noticed in one of the little saucers I had two little round dots. I opened up the container. These must have came in with one of the two plant shipments that I had ordered just a few days prior. These dudes were rolled up on the top leaf, which was the only leaf that was actually sitting above water, and they had been there for days on end. I could not believe the fact that they were alive and not drowned, and they're the same color. So they're striped. So I was like super excited. And these aren't the replacements for the isopods. This is our second set. The first set I ordered through an online vendor and they arrived DOA. And I tried to do a video about the reason why they, were dead on arrival, is the fact that Skull Island has cannibals living on it, and maybe they were eaten by cannibals. But anyway, these two are on there. One's larger than the other. Here you can see them right under the silver and green leaf. There's one of them. There's another one right above a rock just to below it and to its left. So I'm hoping that's a male-female couple, and I'm hoping I do get some babies. I'm going to keep them in there for a month because I've read online where it takes usually about a month for them to do breeding. So there you have it so far, Skull Island in all of its glory. I've got detailed versions if you're interested. Until then, have a great day.